More playoff implications on the line tonight in the National Hockey League. Guys, welcome into PuckTime, powered by WagerTalk TV. I am Andrew. I've got Carmine and Brian Leonard with me to break down 3 games, best bets at the end of the show. And guys, if you've ever seen the movie The Hangover and you see when Alan is at the blackjack table, well, that's how it looks right now for me, trying to figure out what every team needs to happen to make sure they make the postseason. It's a lot to figure out. We'll try and help you guide your way through it. But all you got to do is just win and you're in for some of these teams right now. Red Wings, Canadiens, Capitals, Flyers, Maple Leafs, and Panthers. We'll break down all 3 of those games. Carm, I hope you know which scene I'm referencing. And I'm not sure if you saw Frank Saravelli's tweet last night, pretty much talking about what every single team needs to happen in order to get in. But man, I think I had a brain injury after trying to read that tweet and figure everything out. But when it comes down to it, win and you're in for some of these teams. How was your night last night, Carmen? What do you think about the Wings and Habs game tonight?
Yeah, 2-1 night last night. The only loser was Detroit. I had them in regulation. I didn't want to lay that big number with them. And, they were fortunate to come back and win that game, even though they won I think they easily won the XG battle in that one. A big, huge win for Detroit. It's an inflated price on the Wings tonight. Opened at -150, and the market's pushed it to like a 170. And honestly, I don't get it. If you base it just on yesterday's game, I don't get it. If you're basing it on the goalies, maybe you can look at it. Primo's is supposed to be Caden Primo is supposed to be the goalie for Montreal tonight. And if you look at his last 3 starts, he's hasn't been lit up, but you can say he's been lit up. He's allowed 4 and 6 goals. He did come in relief in the Toronto game and stopped all 18 shots that he faced, but that wasn't a start for him in that one. It's Andrew, when you talk about what does Detroit need heading into this one, yes, it is confusing, but I sent this to Johnny Detroit last night to let him know what Detroit needs. So here it is. Detroit win, and they're in the playoffs if the Capitals lose to the Flyers in any fashion tonight. If the Red Wings make it to overtime and lose, they're in. If the Capitals lose to the Flyers in regulation and the Penguins to the Islanders in any fashion, obviously a loss eliminates them from the playoffs. But you can't worry about that other stuff. You have to worry about your own game, and they need to win this game, whether it comes in regulation, whether it comes in OT. They need to win this game. It's one where I don't feel comfortable laying $1.70 in this game. Montreal's a scrappy team. We saw it yesterday, and the Wings have to do one thing because they haven't done it for a while now. They have to play better in front of their own net. They let Montreal guys. If you're not going to hit them when they're in front of the net, they're just going to stay there. They're going to whack at pucks. 3 of Montreal's goals yesterday came within 5 or 6 feet of the goal crease, the blue zone, I'll call it. You look at Detroit, 5 goals for Detroit, 4 of them came from the offensive zone circles and only 1 from in front of the net. So you have to be better in front of the net. You can't give these guys second and third chances because you're going to get scored on. And when you get scored on, you saw Detroit guys busting their sticks, especially after that 4-1 goal. A guy snapped his stick over the crossbar. They were clearly frustrated in that game. They got to get off to a better start. You got to get ahead against this Montreal team. That's the way you're going to beat them. Get ahead of them. I'm looking at all of my games today that we're going to talk about here, guys. I'm not going sides. I'm not going totals. I'm going different kind of props that I like. And I'm going to take the Wings team total in this one. I'm going to take over 3.5. It's -115. I think we're going to see goals in this one, but Detroit is going to have to score. They're going to have to get out early. And if it's Primo in goal, they need to get on him early, fire some pucks at the net, get those rebounds and score. Detroit's not going to win a 2-1 game. Well, I can't see them winning a 2-1 game. If they win this, they're going to have to win it by scoring goals. So I'm taking the team total over 3.5 for Detroit minus 115. And I'll send it over to Brian, who's filling in today for the Prez. Thank you, Brian, for coming on Tuesday. My favorite guest, of course. I always talk about it. Buster's not watching, so he's not going to hear this. And we know Prez is not watching. Give us your thoughts on this one, Brian.
I love your honesty. Yes, I was looking at this very much the same way. If it's a 14 battle for the final wild card spot, it'll be decided these last 2 days. Currently, Washington and Detroit are tied, while the Penguins sit a point behind. Philadelphia sits 2 point behind with the same 1 game to go. As you imagine, these two teams played yesterday, with Detroit coming all the way back from a 4-1 deficit to win in overtime. That pretty much sums up the way this Canadian season has gone. Good enough to be competitive for most of the game, but not deep enough to get the win in some of these contests. Now, this is the third game of 4 days for both of these clubs. They're going to come in very tired here. And normally when a team is like Detroit, who hasn't been to the playoffs, gets that chance, I would expect a conservative game. But because these teams have played 3 games in 4 nights, I don't think they're going to have the legs for it. Obviously, this game is much more important to the Red Wings, but the Canadiens have instant revenge. This game opened, as you mentioned, the Red Wings minus 150, which I thought was a fair number. But it has been bet up 20 cents. In fact, I've seen it up to 175 in one place. Too late to play Detroit. If you wanted Detroit, if you're doing this for a living, you can't afford to lay 25 cents worse than what the number you've got could have gotten. So you can't play Detroit. But I think there's some value here on Montreal. My only question is, will they be able to win? I'm not so sure. I think the Montreal plus 1.5 may be a good bet here. That's where I'm leaning in this one. I think Montreal keep it competitive. But as I said, this is a team who has found ways to lose a lot of these games they should have won. I'll take the plus 1.5 here with the Canadiens.
The plus 1.5 with the Montreal Canadiens. And Brian, you're right. As someone that, as watches the team religiously, there's one thing that's exciting to look forward to in the future, at least, is that it's not like in a lot of these games they've been blown out against these great opponents or certain opponents. They've lost a lot of 1-goal games, but hey, they're still losing and they still blew a 4-1 lead. So I can't really be happy about that. And as someone that's a Sidney Crosby fan, I had a lot of friends that are Penguins fans not happy with my team last night after they pretty much, didn't do any favors for the Pittsburgh Penguins last night. That's for sure. Carm talked about the expected goals and the shots on goal. Couldn't be a better statement. I mean, realistically, I think if anybody wants to look at shot props tonight for the Red Wings, the best thing that you should be doing is just taking a look at Caden Primo saves over. Yesterday, the lines don't come out for this stuff, guys, until a little bit later in the day. But Samuel Montembeault didn't even need overtime to go up and over his save prop. He hit that, I think, with like 5 minutes to go in the third period. So a lot of shots given up for this Canadiens team. There were some penalties as well. They had to have a couple kills on the penalty kill. And, of course, Montembeault had to come up big with some saves. But, guys, yesterday I was on WagerTalk today discussing this game. I actually gave out the Habs. I felt pretty great about it. Obviously, they had the big lead. But the thing is, sometimes with a young team, they're not going to give up. It's the last game of the year. They are playing at home. You play until the end. But some things just deep down can be very frustrating when you're almost there. Even though I know they kind of got outplayed expected goals wise, they still had the lead. Everything was going well for them. They played a solid hockey game, and you're not able to do that. And again, I know that the advanced numbers would say Detroit should have had the lead in the first place, but they didn't. They had to come back. So Detroit's going to be a team in this situation that's going to know that, hey, we won a game last night we probably didn't deserve to win after being down 4-1, and they're going to come out even sharper tonight. So I think that last night might have been the one for the Habs to sneak in, and now this one, they're going to be upset. They're not going to be happy. They blew that lead, but it's going to be tough. Both games, as Brian mentioned, both teams, very busy schedules, 3 and 4, and of course the back-to-back nights. So it's going to be very difficult. And one thing to mention as well, Lane Hudson making his debut last night for the Canadiens. I talked about it, an up-and-coming defenseman who just finished up at Boston University. Guys, his prop was plus 220 yesterday to record a point. He did in the first 5 minutes of the game, and his number is the exact same as it was yesterday. But when it comes down to it, ultimately, I expect some sloppiness. I expect some goals here tonight again. Primo's actually had a pretty solid season since Jake Allen was traded, and he's gotten some more consistent starts. But guys, I think this game has goals once again. I think that we see the fatigue factor. I think we see sloppiness from both teams, and I know it's such an important game for the Red Wings, and defense will be a factor and on their minds. But with Brian talking about how many games these teams have played in such a short period of time, I have to go ahead and be looking at the over and expect some goals once again in this one. And Lucas Raymond, guys, how well did this guy play yesterday? He had a great game. I will be looking at player point props for him. And Uri Slafkovsky, the young player for the Canadiens, I'll be looking at his point prop, -120 for him, playing on a line with Caulfield and Suzuki. Their numbers are almost 190, -200. He's had eight game point streaks, 9 game point streaks, but yet they still continued to give him only -120 here for it. And I think this might sound weird, guys, because the plus money is so nice tonight for the Canadiens, but for any of you guys that are interested in getting involved with them, their team total is over 2.5, -130. We're seeing 3.5 at not that good of a price for Detroit. So if you like the Habs, I would just bet the over, because I think they're going to allow some goals as well. I think we have some comments here, and then I'll go back to you. We've got some hate coming in. There we go. We've got some Wash Redskin. We got some hate. You guys are always wrong on the Capitals. Been wrong on them all year, especially you, Prez. Well, Prez isn't here, so we'll blame Prez. We'll blame Prez. Oh, Carm, you wanted to read those out? Okay, go ahead.
No, it's all good, Andrew. I know. Multitasking, man. Yeah, I know. Listen, Washington, Wash Redskins. He's the guy is always so polite to us all season long. Especially Prez. He absolutely loves us. You can't find another guy like him. Maybe we'll take Washington tonight, because we're always wrong on them. So what better thing to do than take Washington tonight and completely blow up that team and have them lose to the Flyers? I think we should do that. I'll leave that one to Brian. Steven Van Dyke, please pick the Caps tonight. Let's go Red Wings. These are from our YouTube shorts, of course, coming in. Paul, you had the Caps in regulation +185. I think Paul is actually Devendra, who lives in Vegas. I think she works the Vegas Golden Knights games as a beer vendor, if I remember correctly. So thank you for commenting. And Montreal, 26-4 first period, over half a goal versus the East, from LJ from H-Town. So guys, we appreciate those comments on our YouTube shorts, and of course on this live feed here, and the video afterwards. There was one guy before we get into the next game. There was one guy two guys who commented on yesterday's video. Listen, they're not trolls. There were comments towards me, and one guy is an English teacher, and he always says I use the word literally the wrong way. So I'm going to keep using literally the wrong way, and maybe his head's going to explode. Another guy says I get Varlamov's name wrong, and he's going to have a shot every time I get his name wrong. So I literally am going to get Varlamov's name and call him Valamov, so you can literally get Valamov and have another shot. So if you guys aren't drunk by now, and your head hasn't exploded, you know where I'm going with this, Andrew. But listen, we appreciate the comments. I'm going to get the vocabulary wrong. I'm going to get some of these Russian names wrong, or the Swedish names wrong. It's going to happen. If it's an Italian name, I'm going to get it right. But if it's a Canadian name, I'm going to get it right. So it happens. It's part of who I am, Andrew. Let's get to Washington again, and Philadelphia.
Yeah, just another one coming in about the over 6 being really juiced. I would argue the better price on the 6.5 is better off. You don't want to be laying huge chalk on an over 6. I'm sure you guys would agree with me. I don't like laying a huge price on a total. He says he loves us, but do we even watch the Capitals games? You know what? I don't know about that. I'd rather go swimming in a fish tank full of. Never mind. We'll get on to the next game. Let's talk.
I'd rather watch the Fireplace channel.
Let's watch the Washington Capitals and Philadelphia Flyers here as we break this game down and look at this one from a betting standpoint and not worry about who will actually enjoy watching the team play. But maybe we can make some money on them or against them, Brian. So are we going to be talked into showing this team some love today, or are you going to go against them?
I like them. I think there's some value on Washington. I've had a lot of success on Washington this year. So I've also had a lot of success on Philadelphia. So these are the two of the teams that I've been very happy with. Obviously, this is a must-win game for both teams, but recent advanced stats, show that both squads are underperforming their expected goal numbers. Capitals come in with a 3-5-2 run, Flyers with a 2-6-2 run. So if one of these teams make the playoffs, they'll be doing it by backing in. Neither one of them is playing very well right now. The schedule favors the host, who enter play well rested, having had the last 2 days off while staying at home. Washington plays their third game in 4 days after shocking the Bruins on the road last night. So there's a reason why Philadelphia is favored here. But that said, I don't know if I could trust them in this price range. They opened at 135. Line's been bet up 20 cents since then. I think that gives us plenty of value here on the Capitals. Neither one of these teams are teams that you can look at and say, yeah, in a must-win game, that's the team I want to back. Philadelphia's had a lot of problems all season long in that regard. So if there's value to be had here, it's going to be on Washington, and that's the side I'll be on.
You there, Andrew?
I'm here. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, usually
we're in shock. We're in shock because I was waiting for another comment from Washington Redskins. I'm looking at Andrew, and Andrew's looking at me. And like, one of us has got to say something.
The one time Carm's not slacking me, he wants to say something. Is I'm not ready to say something myself. It's funny how things work.
It's absolutely phenomenal that I had nothing actually to say there, Andrew. But I will say this, just getting to this game in a second. I was looking at the markets while we were talking, and the money keeps coming in on Detroit. It's like bookmaker on our live lines is up to -205 on the Red Wings, and you can put a little stock in the fact that the Montreal Canadiens have played 12 back-to-backs this year and lost 11 of them. Being outscored by almost 2.5 goals a game in those ones. Detroit 5-4 in the second of a back-to-back. So not the greatest record for the Canadiens in the second of back-to-backs. 1-11 is not something to hang your hat on. Andrew, I look at this one, and Brian, I'm glad you took Washington in this one. I'm going with different prop. The total right now is 5.5. Here is a scenario that I don't know if it plays out tonight or not, but is one that you have to think about tonight, is the fact that Philadelphia has to win this game in regulation. A win in OT does nothing for them. They are eliminated from the playoffs. You have to factor that in tonight, because in a 2-2 game, and you have the Flyers, let's say, they're pulling their goalie. They need to win the game in regulation. So maybe taking plus money on a team like Washington isn't a bad idea, because the Caps are going to try and keep this game close, try and get it to or tight, get it to OT if they can't get a lead and protect it, get it to OT, pick up at least a point and let the chips fall where they may as far as the playoffs go. But this is the first scenario of regulation where a team has to win in regulation, and it's the Flyers, and they could very well pull their goalie. They're going to have to pull their goalie. Getting to OT means nothing to them. If they're in a tied game, they're going to pull their goalie. And with that said, I'm going to take the Caps team total over 2.5 goals, -125, because if it's a 2-2 game and they pull that goalie, and a lot of things have to happen for this game to get to 2-2, but I'm just putting the point out there that all the pressure's on Philadelphia here. Caps team total over 2.5 -125. It could get there with an empty netter. What a way to win it with an empty netter when the game is tied at 2-2. Those scores sometimes happen, guys. I think I did say the Islanders 4-1 yesterday, and that came out pretty good. They had to call back a goal late in that game from 5-1 down to 4-1, but a 4-1 final scoreline. Andrew, thoughts on pulling goalies in regulation in a tied game?
I think it makes sense. I mean, you have to do it. If a team has to do it, they have no choice. They need the point. And Justin Williams, former known as Mr. Overtime from the Carolina Hurricanes, who's now a broadcaster, he was speaking about these teams during the intermissions. They make sure that they check, and they ask the trainers, they ask the managers, what are the scores of the other games? So let's not kid ourselves. These guys during the game, when they go to the locker room, they know what the scores are of the other teams. And I think it's really important, as you mentioned, Carm, for them to know what they have to do, obviously before the game, but if they find out even during the game, how much it changes their mindset. But I also believe it can be a distraction. And I just don't think that this is a team in Washington and Philadelphia as well that can play that style of get a lead and protect it right now. Both of these teams are, if Washington makes it, they have limped into the playoffs. Like, I love our commenters right now, and I love all the engagement we're getting, but let's not act like Washington just discovered sliced bread and they're the best thing in the world right now. They're 3-7 in their last 10 games. Washington's not playing some type of fantastic hockey right now. They're just, fresh off a good run a few weeks ago, and they're happy to be where they are right now. Philadelphia, let's talk about them. 2-10, their last 12 games against the Metro. 2-7, their last 9 games against the Eastern Conference. Both these teams are awful. I don't like either of these teams, but somebody has to win. And I think we're going to see the over come in for the reasons you mentioned, Carm, because of the empty net goals, because of the poor defensive efforts we've seen out of them. And right now, do these teams have fresh goaltenders? It's been a lot of the same guys having to go for these teams. And let's be completely real here. The Carter Hart situation this season was a complete distraction for the Philadelphia Flyers. Let's say the elephant in the room. It has hurt the Flyers in a major way in their goaltending. And Brian, looking at the defensive spots here, Philadelphia allowing 9 against Montreal, 6 against Columbus, 4 against Buffalo, 5 against Chicago. Things have not been good for them defensively. And usually when I say teams need a point, I look towards the under. Carm, I've been saying that quite a bit, but in this game in particular, I don't think either team's going to be able to stop anything. This, to me, is going to be an absolute chaos type game. I'll look for some goals. We'll go over 6.5 goals in this game. What do you think?
Yeah, I can't fault you on that one, Andrew. Like, what is the actual game total on this right now? I'm just jumping to the live lines. I see it at 5.5. So the Washington game is at 5.5, not 6.5. So you're even better off there as far as that one goes. But listen, it's all about who gets out to the early lead in this one. The Flyers have been good when they can get out to a lead. They did it against the New York Rangers in that one. Once they got the lead against the Rangers, they completely shut them down. Rangers got nothing in that game, and it finishes 4-1, and that was at Madison Square Gardens. Then they go to New Jersey and shut out the Devils 1-0. It's the games before that for Philadelphia that were troubling. And Andrew, I was just talking about it in chat, but you look at the games for Philadelphia, and they put themselves in this boat as far as what the problem with this team is. You look at them, and losses to. Am I looking at the right ones here? I may be looking at. Let me just have a look. Losses to the Montreal Canadiens 9-3, Columbus 6-2, the Buffalo Sabres 4-2. Those are games in which you got to pick up a point, even a point. They would be in a completely different situation right now. They lose to the Chicago Blackhawks 5-1 and then lose to Montreal 4-1. Those are games you can't lose. They dropped so many points at a crucial time in near the end of the season that they're their own worst enemy. But maybe they can save themselves by winning 3 in a row and winning the last one in regulation. That's what they're going to have to do. So we'll see from them tonight. But if they get out to an early lead, maybe they play lockdown. But if If Washington gets ahead, they're going to have to open this game up somehow. And I don't know if that equates to goals, but at 5.5, I'd rather lean to the over in that one, especially because I have the Washington team total.
I look forward to seeing what Tortorella's like tonight if his team goes down early, guys. I want to see a bench cam of him. I got a live comment coming in here asking about the Bruins under. Are they motivated tonight? Brian, I know you're not really too much of a totals guy, but you do bet them a little bit. What are your thoughts on the Bruins right now and tonight in their matchup against the Senators here? I mean, we were talking before the show. Do the Bruins even want to play the Tampa Bay Lightning? Who do they want to play right now?
You're muted.
Manipulation going around. I'm good. Okay.
Good.
We saw it in the NBA with the Cleveland Cavaliers with a big lead going into the last quarter and basically pull everybody, and now they get to play the team they want, which is Orlando. And even though I'm a Cleveland fan, I kind of hope they lose, to be honest with you, for doing that. But yeah, this is a situation with Florida right now, team with a lot of experience that nobody wants to play in the playoffs. I talked about that with Dallas in the West, and now Vegas somehow is got a chance to play two of the weakest teams and move up to number 6. So yeah, there's something going on here, which is one of the reasons why I'm passing overall for my clients today. Is we don't know what the motivation behind the scenes are for some of these teams, but I can see that. I won't list anything out that could not happen, because you never know what's going on in the locker rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know,
Andrew,
man. This to me is a team that doesn't really look like they're in playoff form right now, Carm. They're packing it in, waiting for the playoff. Then again, they could take some anger out on the Senators tonight, Carm. They really could.
Listen, there's two Carmine Biancos, Andrew. There's two of us. There is the one who is the normal guy who sits at his desk and looks at the analytic numbers, reviews what he saw in the games last night to sort of formulate an opinion and make it an educated opinion. And the Bruins, you look at the Bruins, and I understand there's no such thing as tanking, but we like to use that word. So he understands that. Carmine Bianco understands there's no tanking. Then there's the one who watched the game last night, and I'm like, these Bruins are tanking this game 5 shots or 6 shots after 45 minutes. And they're going to lose to Ottawa and hope that Florida wins or loses in OT. So the Bruins can avoid the Tampa Bay Lightning, 2-time Stanley Cup champions and finalists the following year, and instead play the Toronto Maple Leafs, who they literally own in the playoffs. So there's that Carmine Bianco, who is the guy who sits at the bar with you, and you guys are watching the game and having pints of whatever, Guinness. By the way, did you know a pint of Guinness is like eating 10 slices of white bread, Andrew? You probably didn't, but that's a little bit of a tidbit for you. I might take Ottawa as a small bet tonight at the plus money. You give me plus 180. We'll find out in the first 20 minutes of the game whether the Bruins are motivated or not. It's supposed to be Allmark in goal tonight. Swayman played last night. We'll see what we get out of the Boston Bruins. But, man, I know tanking doesn't exist. It really shouldn't exist. But that was an abysmal or dismal performance. Whatever the English teacher will correct me later on, by the Boston Bruins last night in Washington.
We're loving all the comments right now, though. Instagram, Shorts, Facebook, TikTok. We're all over the place here on YouTube as well, guys. Show us some love. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. We cannot wait to bring you some playoff content. We're going to be going live during the intermissions as well, keeping you guys up to date on all the current odds and prices. And again, if you see a price on a playoff matchup that you might not like, well, you might be able to get a better number after game 1 or after game 2. So it's all about being patient. But thanks for being here with us, guys. We appreciate all of you guys tuning in live. If you can't make the live show, it's fine. Comment afterwards. Let us know who you like tonight in the National Hockey League. All right, well, we talked about the Panthers being a team that nobody wants to play. Well, the Leafs have to play them tonight. But the game doesn't really mean much here for this Maple Leafs team. Well, I guess it could mean something here, Carm. But we have no Max Domi. We have no Yarncroc. We have no Bobby McMahon. and we'll see if anybody else plays. I know there was that debate that we talked about Austin Matthews. He's obviously going to be in there chasing that record of 70 goals, or that milestone here. But let's be real here, guys. I mean, this game is going to be physical. It's going to be, a lot of, I think, between the whistles type stuff between these teams. And it's going to be kind of both coaches not really wanting to give away too much, but also wanting to get that leg up on their opponents. How do you see this game going, Carm? Is this an absolute, chess match where it's a low scoring game and defensive battle, or are these teams trading goals all night? Is it a playoff preview already and we see a low scoring game? How does this game go in your eyes?
Yeah, it from clearly from a betting perspective of sides or totals, I don't think it's playable, because I think in essence it's a meaningless game unless Florida sees that the Bruins are losing their game, and who's scoreboard watching? The players aren't. Maybe the assistant coaches are. Maybe in between periods they're getting some information, but for that number one seed, I want to look at it from a prop perspective, because Matthews is going to play. There's been talk about him resting and not resting, but as a team and in that locker room, and to Matthews getting to 70 goals is a big for him. It's huge for him, and he's important to the team. He's their best player. They want to get him to the 70 goal mark. Now, whether he gets there or not, I don't know. But he's going to try, which leads me to where I'm going to play. I think the only play I can take in this game is the Austin Matthews shots on goal. 4.5 minus 30. He had 10 shots on goal against Detroit. He was firing from everywhere. You have to believe that even if they plan on resting him or giving him reduced minutes in the third period, this guy is going to be firing the puck. They're going to be setting him up at every chance they get. He's got to go over this number. So over 4.5 shots on goal, minus 130, Austin Matthews shot prop for me. Brian?
I think that's probably a pretty good bet, but keep in mind, they've got 2 games left on the season. This isn't their last game, so they could rest him and then come out firing the next game. That's my only concern here, but the Maple Leafs, as Andrew mentioned, really can't change their playoff positioning, but Florida does sit that point behind Boston for third in the East, with both teams being favored tonight. And both of these teams here have had a pretty good run the last 10 games on 5-5 play. So they're, as opposed to the last games that we talked about, their teams were backing into the playoffs. These teams are playing really well right now. Toronto's had the last 2 days off after back-to-back losses at home to New Jersey and Detroit. Nobody wants to go into the playoffs on a losing streak, so that may be some reason for them to play well here. They end the season tomorrow in Tampa Bay. The Panthers won 3 straight games and have had the last 2 days off, so the schedule favors Florida here. Game seems to mean Florida, more to Florida, obviously, as Toronto, as I said, is pretty much stuck where they're at. And that's the way we're leaning here. Keep in mind, we haven't had much luck involving Toronto games the last couple of months. Whether I've been on them or against them, I seem to lose every time. So this is just a lean, but it's a lean on Florida, the team that I think is the better squad. And as you mentioned, Toronto, we don't know what their situation is. A lot of times, if your goal is to come out and get somebody points, they're going to get it, but it takes you out of the regular way you play hockey. So I lean with Florida here. I think that's the better side to play. But once again, I have not had any success with Toronto second half of the season.
And I think, Brian, looking at this Maple Leafs team overall, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I think they've done pretty good in this role as an underdog at this price. I feel like sometimes in this Leafs team, the way they've played over the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's tough to look at them right now getting plus 135 and kind of looking away. But at the same time, this Panthers team has done so well against the Maple Leafs. Their physicality has helped. Their star players show up. They're playing at home. So it's kind of a tricky game. I've had a tough time with the pricing of this one, getting me involved here. I really, really do like Carmine's play there. It seems like one of those plays that it's almost just like, that should be the only one we bet tonight, realistically. I mean, the shot attempts, if the guy would have hit the net a little bit more here, Carm, If he's getting 8 or 9 shots, you just need him to go 50% and hit the net, and you cash that ticket. So I got a player prop though, and that's Morgan Riley to get a point. He's minus 110 to record a point. And defensemen, I always say, guys, these defensemen, you just get better odds for them. They don't account for how often they're jumping into the play, for them being out there on the power play. Who is setting up the trigger man? Who is passing the puck sometimes up the ice to these talented forwards like Nylander, like Marner and Matthews? Well, it's definitely Morgan Riley. And for him to get an assist or a goal is minus 110. I feel like that is a great price to look at. Sam Reinhart looking to continue his great scoring as well, certainly available in the prop betting market. But, you know, I think that I lean towards the Panthers like Brian did, but at the same time, I just couldn't get there with the pricing. As far as the total, I kind of like the under in this game just because I think it will have that chippiness. It will have that playoff feel to it already. These teams know this is a potential matchup here. And I feel like we'll see that. Unless we see all kinds of power play goals, I do think, guys, this could be a defensive type of game. Morgan Riley is pretty much all I've got for this game here, though.
Yeah, it's Andrew. It's a tough one. I don't care what price you give me on either team. I just don't want to take them. I'm gonna be a fan of the game and watch it. There's quite a few games I do like tonight, but you know the fact that you said like Domi's out tonight, correct? Domi's out of the lineup.
Yes,
means that it's likely going to be Mitch Marner back on the number one line with Matthews. I know that Sheldon Keefe has tried to keep them apart, to spread the offense through the lineup, but he's going to, if he's back on the number one line, he's going to be the setup guy for Matthews. So that, you know, that aids in that fact as well too. When Domi picked up those 17 minutes or whatever, it was Marner that returned to the number one line on Saturday against the Detroit Red Wings. So we'll see if that's the line we see tonight or not. While you were talking, I was looking for any news on the morning skate and the lines that they're running in the morning skate. I couldn't find anything, so I'm just going to assume, and we know what happens when you assume, but that it is a Marner on that number one line with Austin Matthews. Just give me 5 shots in the first period, score a goal. Let me cash my bet. You guys are happy, got 70, and let me watch a different game.
Well,
tonight. So
Justin P commenting live right now, and he says, I hope AM doesn't get that on his first goal, on his first shot, because his minutes will certainly be reduced if he scores early. So Carm pretty much is hoping he doesn't score until the third period, because if he does, he might get a little bit less time for the remaining of the game. Matty Crenshaw looking at the Eichel shot prop. Look, Eichel shot prop's been great. Carm's been cashing in on it. We've been looking at it. Brian, you know how well Eichel's been playing. I wouldn't talk anybody out of that. And Isaac asking us here about a Winnipeg and Vancouver money line parlay. I don't think he's really asking us, actually. I didn't see a question mark. He is just making a statement about it. Winnipeg and Vancouver money line parlay. So we got Isaac, we got Justin, Maddie in here. Thanks everybody for commenting live. Any thoughts, guys, real quick before we jump into best bets? Winnipeg, Vancouver money line parlay. Brian?
Well, the line tells you that's probably the way it's going to go, but I don't parlay, so I'm out on that one.
Carm?
I don't mind it. Listen, Vancouver, and you'll find out in the best bet segment that we're going to get to very shortly. Demko making the start for Vancouver tonight. Any 1 point from Vancouver, however they get it tonight, gives them the number one seed in the Pacific. So you know that with Demko returning from the injury list, they are going to play solid hockey in front of them. They want to get that win. They want to get Demko a win as well too, and because he's their number one guy heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And as Demko goes in the playoffs is likely how Vancouver goes. So I don't mind that parlay.
Last one here from Chase Thomas asking us about shot props on Matthews, DeBrincat, Nylander, and Marner. Guys, I'll handle this one. I'm not a fan of taking shot props on 3 different players in the exact same team. I think you got to pick one guy. You know, the likelihood of three guys on the same team that are all 3-star players going over their shot prop, you know, unless they have 35, 37, 38 shots on goal, it's tough for three guys to go over their numbers. So I like the DeBrincat one, though. DeBrincat's a good one. A lot of pressure will be on Patrick Kane. DeBrincat can have a good game and hopefully take that pressure off some of the other guys. But let's jump into the best bet segment. We'll start with Carmine. Carm, what do you have for us for best bet? And you got that big play going tonight. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so 5% play up for tonight in the NHL. 6 of the last 8 have cashed. In the analysis section, after the show is over, I'm going to include all the games I'm playing tonight. So whether they're client plays or other plays that I have. So if you've already purchased it, look for an update. You usually get an email notification that there's an update to the play. I include all the plays in there so you guys know everything that I'm on tonight in the NHL. A couple Champions League games ago today. Leg 2 of the quarterfinal action. Some big games. Barcelona versus Paris Saint-Germain and Borussia Dortmund versus Atletico Madrid. Both go at 3 o'clock and a couple plays up there. So you can grab the one-day all access if you want, which is $39, and you get all of the plays today as well too. My best bet, I'm going to go back to the Vancouver one that I talked about. I'm going to take them in regulation minus 130. Like I said, any point clinches it for them tonight, the number 1 seed in the Pacific. But with Demko being in goal, I have to believe that they're going to put a strong effort forward tonight. I expect them to play a very good game tonight. Get the number one seed, and then their last game they can basically rest some players. So give me the Vancouver Canucks minus 130 in regulation, and I'll send it over to Brian for his thoughts.
Just touching first on the gentleman who wanted to play the 3 Toronto players over. Instead of doing that, just play shot saves for the other team. I would think would probably take care of that and give you a better chance to win. Although I'm not a prop guy, it makes sense to me. I'll go back to the game that I gave out earlier. I passed for clients today in hockey. Didn't have anything strong enough to release as a play. So this is the best I've got here. But it's not a physical play for my regular clients. It's just an opinion, and that's on the Washington Capitals here. The line is just going out of play range for Philadelphia, and these two teams, neither one of them have been very good. Washington, I think, is down 36 goals on the season when you're taking a look at their net numbers, but they are a different team than they were earlier in the season. But schedule's better for Philadelphia here. I just don't trust them, and I know there's some things going on in the locker room there, and it's tough for them to play with that coach. I mean, he's a great coach and all, but if he doesn't make the playoffs, I mean, it's been a wasted season. But even if they do make the playoffs, I'm not sure I could trust them going into it. So I'll take the Washington side here. I thought the line was fair when it opened, and now it's gone up at 20 cents or more. So give me Washington as my best bet on today's card.
All right, the Washington Capitals for Brian. Who says we don't show love for this team on the show? Looks like Brian's showing them some love and taking them at that plus price. For me on today's card, guys, we have that great deal going. Yesterday, we had a deal expire, which was 1 month plus 7 days. Now we have a new one, which is 1 week plus 3 days for free. So you can get that available at all 3 of our pages. But for myself, you're going to get MLB, you're going to get NBA playoffs, you're going to get NHL. For my play of the day, though, we're going to look at Slavkovsky to record a point at minus 120. Last night, they played the Detroit Red Wings. Raphael Harvey-Pinard, Justin Barron, and Brendan Gallagher were the goal scorers for the Montreal Canadiens. Guys, that will not happen again if the Canadiens get on the board. They're usually a pretty top-heavy team, and if that's the case, that means that Suzuki, Caulfield, or Slavkovsky, the top line, will be involved in some of the goals and some of the play here. To get a guy at minus 120 who's in the top line with the team here, I believe is a great price and a great option in game 2 of the back-to-back. So Slavkovsky to record a point for the Canadiens, my best bet. Guys, find Brian and Carmine, myself, over at WagerTalk.com. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time right here on PuckTime.